With the arrival of the Nintendo Switch 2, we also got a patch for Pokémon Scarlet and Violet, giving us a taste of what the future of Pokémon might look like. And for that reason, I wanted to look back at all of the Pokémon games that were released on the Nintendo Switch and then rank them by my least favorite to my absolute favorite games based on how they played on the original Switch. The only criteria I'm going to be using for this list is my own personal opinion, so try not to get too upset, especially as we dive into my least favorite Pokemon games for this Nintendo Switch era. Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Pokemon Shining Pearl. These games were so incredibly disappointing in basically every single way outside of the Grand Underground. That was pretty cool. They added some cool things there. I know some people enjoyed some of the shiny hunts they did for the legendaries, but for me, I beat the game one time and then really never went back to it. And I don't regret that at all. And I haven't wanted to go back since. Pokemon Platinum, one of my favorite Pokemon games of all time. I have put so much time into that game, playing the game normally, doing the post-game content, doing Nuzlocks of the game, doing shiny hunting in the game, the Poke Radar method, probably my favorite shiny hunting method. Really, Pokemon Platinum and Gen 4 in general showed me how much I truly love Pokemon and the amount of different things I enjoyed with the series. But Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl just left so much to be wanted with these games. I don't regret playing through the game a single time, but the fact that I've never really wanted to go back to it, there's nowhere else I could put these games, and I haven't really played them enough to have too much else to say. It just kind of is what it is. And as I put every single Pokemon game on this list, I will have to name the tier they're now in. So why? Why did they make these games? Why did they do this? They gave us Pokemon Legends Arceus, and that was phenomenal. We'll get to that later, but why this? Why the chibi characters? Why not have it be Pokemon Platinum? Just why? Moving on, the tier above these games, just gonna be the Pokemon games that I didn't really play on the Nintendo Switch, and also Pokemon Home. I don't even know how that snuck its way onto this list. It's not a game. It works well. I like Pokemon Home. I don't know how to rank it compared to anything outside of BDSP. But Mystery Dungeon, I never really gave a fair chance. Maybe I'll play it more at some point. It just wasn't something I played a lot of as a kid, like any of the Mystery Dungeon games. I'm sure I missed out, but it wouldn't make sense for me to rank this one. I don't really know. And actually, it turns out the rest of the games that I didn't play aren't on the tier list, so that's pretty perfect. Any game you do not see here, just imagine it's in this tier. There's a few games that released on mobile and on the Switch that I didn't decide to include here, because not only did I not play them, but I just felt weird comparing them to the main console games. But this is where things get a lot more difficult, as we really gotta make a big decision. It's pretty easy to say Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl are your least favorite Pokemon Switch games. But what can you put after that? Actually, I don't think this is too difficult. I think Pokémon Quest has to be next. Now, I really enjoyed Pokemon Quest when it came out. It's a super enjoyable game. The shiny mechanics in this game were actually pretty fun and gave it some, extra replayability, but this game really disappointed me when we didn't get many updates for it. I'm pretty sure there's a Chinese version of Pokemon Quest out there that's gotten continual updates and a bunch more generations in it, and it's really sad we never got that. I don't understand why we got Pokemon Quest. It seemed like people enjoyed it, then we didn't really get much more. It just felt like there was so much left on the table, and it's disappointing. But I really enjoyed playing it. I didn't play through it one time and set it down. I played through it and then wanted to come up with reasons to play it even more. Just unfortunately, the content ran out pretty quickly and I haven't touched it in a while. So maybe someday it gets new content, but I've pretty much given up any hope for that. But what to name this tier? Pokemon Quest. The Squidward looking out window tier. I'm just looking out at how fun the Chinese version of Pokemon Quest looks. Just so many generations, so many Pokemon, so much content. What could have been? Similarly, I think I'm gonna have to go with another side game, and another game that I'm pretty sure was both mobile and also on the Switch, with Pokémon Unite. Now, I really enjoyed Pokémon Unite when I played it, but it's a game that I really only played for a few weeks. Every once in a while, I've gotten back into it to play a few games, but it just wasn't something that really captured me. I think they did a great job with the game. I know there's some people that really stuck with it and absolutely love it, but it's just something that I feel like started to fade away. And the best version of Pokemon Unite is when you can play it with a full team of friends and you're pretty dedicated to it. This may be more of a me issue than an issue with the actual game itself. It got a bunch of updates. There's a lot of cool Pokemon in it, but I just didn't enjoy it enough to really stick around. And honestly, that's kind of a boring reason to rank a game, but it's a pretty genuine answer here. You know, I really enjoyed the game. It was pretty fun. Seems like a great one. And maybe someday I will get back into it. Now, it seems like it's still getting new content, unlike something like Pokemon Quest. So that's going to put it above this, but it kind of is what it is. I'm going to rank this Mamoswine in a top hat. That feels right. But this is where this list gets incredibly difficult. Every game left here I absolutely love and I've played a lot of, but something has to be ranked next. I think the only thing I could put here is, unfortunately, Pokemon Scarlet and Pokemon Violet. Now, it's very important to note that I am ranking these with how they function on the Switch 1 in mind. These games on the Switch 2, there's a chance they go all the way up to number 1. The improvements are insane. It's really changed a lot about the game, and I'm really excited to play more of them. But on the original Switch, these games had a lot of issues. And it was rumored for a while that we would be getting a big update in potentially the Switch 2 around the second DLC for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. And instead, that didn't happen. We got the second DLC and we didn't get really anything Pokemon-wise for over a year. And it's been tough to have these be the last games as we're waiting for things, you know, to be new and exciting, and even just for these to be fixed, because they eventually did get fixed. But for all of those reasons, I just have to put them here. There's a lot that I love about these games. I think the DLC was fantastic and added a lot. There's a lot of replayability with them, but just compared to everything else, they just were games that were clearly never completely finished and certainly not maximized until like the last week when the Switch 2 came out. That's incredibly disappointing. While games like Pokemon Sword and Shield were definitely complained about when they first came out and people did have issues with them, I really think looking back at those games, a lot of the issues like the whole, you know, the decks, we don't have every single Pokemon, that's just become a staple moving forward. And a lot of those complaints can be moved into Scarlet and Violet. A lot of the issues with the art, I think, are kind of similar with Scarlet and Violet. But it really wasn't until those games that I had a lot of issue just playing in different areas. And while they were certainly not unplayable and there were fixes early on in their lifespan to make them games that I made content on for years and years, and I have had a wonderful experience playing the games, it's just really disappointing to sit here today looking back knowing what they should have been and could have been for so long, and it's just taken forever to get here. So honestly, if this was a Switch 2 ranking, I don't know, maybe in the future, maybe these things jump up to number 2 or 3. I mean, they may end up being some of the best Pokemon games we have on the Switch 2, but they're sitting around Pokemon Unite and Pokemon Quest, and that's pretty depressing. So what am I gonna name this tier for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet? Lagging behind the others. That feels accurate. New Pokemon Snap still being here and not being ranked might be a little controversial, but we're gonna get to that in a bit because I actually think what is next is Pokemon Let's Go Eevee and Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu. And that's not because they're, you know, bad games or disappointing in any way, shape, or form. I absolutely love these games. They're just perfect for what they are. There's not a ton to the games, but there's not really a lot that you feel like you're missing with them. I think Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee are some of the most enjoyable Pokemon games of all time, if not just the most enjoyable raw Pokemon experience. The biggest downfall of these games is after you beat the game, really the only thing left to do is start shiny hunting, and it gets old pretty quickly in these games. Now, we've seen people like Johnstone beyond max out shiny hunting in this game and what you can do. With that video, I don't know how much is left with these games. It's a game that I think most, if not all, Pokemon fans should appreciate and play one time, but I don't know if I'd ever recommend doing a secondary run. There's not really a challenge run. You know, there's only so many Pokemon in the game. It's not like your second playthrough, you're gonna have a completely different team. It's just a really enjoyable playthrough of a Pokemon game, and it's kind of perfect to have in the middle of this list. If we ever got another Let's Go game, I would not be disappointed, but I would hope it would be like a BDSP situation where we have this and then maybe something a little experimental after. And speaking of that little experimental game, we'll get to it in a bit. For now, what am I naming this? Probably something to do with the actual capture mechanics, which were probably the most infuriating part of the game and something I failed to mention. Just doing whoop, whoop, whoop. That feels right. Some of the worst moments were when Pokemon just ran away. But now we've gotten to the top 3 games, and this is difficult. I really want to sneak new Pokemon Snap into the top 2, but I think this is where we put this game, and I will defend this placement to the death. I do not care. New Pokemon Snap is one of the best Pokemon games we have ever gotten. I loved Pokemon Snap so much as a kid, and as I got older, I always went back to replay the game. It was a very quick game, a very simple game, but it was the best game we had ever gotten to really just immerse yourself in the Pokemon world. If you think about it, when you play through a Pokemon game, you kind of wish you were immersed in the Pokemon world, but it just never really felt like you were fully in it. But with Pokemon Snap, you got to see all of their interactions. It really feels like you're in like their home going through it. And while a game where you just take pictures doesn't sound super fun, all of the different things you can find and unlock were just so exciting and cool. I wanted a new version of Pokemon Snap for so long. I never thought it would happen. And when new Pokemon Snap was announced, I could not have been more excited. Unfortunately, it came out at a bad time for me, so I wasn't able to make a lot of content on this game, but I have played so much new Pokemon Snap in my life. I mean, I've gotten so many people into this game, and every time I've just heard rave reviews. There's so much more content in this game than you would expect. Not only is it incredibly replayable because you want to go through and get better, scores on each course and unlock things you missed. There's 4 different, types of photos you can get for every single Pokemon in the game. They had a DLC at some point that added new maps. There is just so much content in this game, and every single run through is so enjoyable. It makes me so happy. It's a beautiful game. It's just a hard game to play without being happy with it. And while it may not have the replayability where I'd want to like wipe my save clean and try again, I still really enjoy going back and trying to max out my score or just getting a better photo of a Pokemon. It's actually a game I've been thinking about going back and playing a little bit more, especially with the Switch 2 to see if it runs just a little bit better. I love this game. There's so much more to it than I think a lot of people would expect, and it's just kind of perfect the way it is. I think the only thing that I'm sad about is that it didn't get more DLC, but past that, I do not play that game and have any knocks on it. Nothing I wish was added. It's a really perfect game and a really perfect side game. I feel like we didn't get a ton of side games in the, the Switch era. It'd be nice to get a few more in the Switch 2 era, but I think this is an incredibly underrated game and honestly a very forgotten about game for a lot of people. So if you haven't played new Pokemon Snap, I would highly recommend it. I think if you're a big Pokemon fan, you will really, really enjoy this game. But what am I gonna name this tier? Gosh, I love Pokemon Snap. I think this is the GOAT spin-off game, and you know what? I'm gonna let it be known. But now we're into the top 2, Pokemon Legends Arceus and Pokemon Sword and Shield. And I actually think what I'm gonna put here is Pokemon Sword and Pokemon Shield. Now, Pokemon Sword and Shield are really interesting games to look back at. I remember pretty clearly when these games first dropped, there were a lot of people that were really upset with the games. And being a Pokemon content creator at the time was really bizarre. I felt like pretty early on, a lot of people fell off playing these games and didn't really know what kind of content to make of them. But as time went on, it was just incredibly clear that as the Switch kept selling, more and more and more and more people got into Pokemon through Pokemon Sword and Shield, and these were really special games. Now, unfortunately, I do think what elevated these games to this spot is the DLCs, and not everyone has the money to spend for those DLCs. Not everyone was able to play them. But for me, as someone who did play through those games and play through the DLC a lot, I think they just added a ridiculous amount to this game. There's just so much fun to be had. It's nice to go back and play through these games. I think they're a little bit more replayable than something like Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, as you do have a traditional path moving forward. It's not like you're running through the open world and it's like, oh, I can go to gym 1, then I'm gonna do gym 4 next, then this and that and the other. It is still a linear progression, which is nice. It's a little bit easier in that way to have a different experience every time you play it. And the wild area is just an incredible addition to the game. I really like the blend of traditional routes and the wild area. And the best thing they did was make both DLCs 2 brand new wild areas. That's exactly what I wanted from that game, from the DLCs, and it's exactly what we got. It's really, really, really wonderful to have those 3 very different wild areas to run through. You still have the traditional game, and I feel like the DLCs added a ridiculous amount to do for most every type of Pokemon player. They're games that I find myself coming back to make content on pretty consistently, and I always have a wonderful time. They're videos that a lot of people really respond to in a pretty wonderful way. I just think they're games that were a little too overhated. There was a lot lot of feelings coming into them that I think were very loud, and the majority of people just enjoyed the games for what they were, and I think they've gotten better and better as time moved forward. There's definitely some flaws with Pokemon Sword and Shield. They are not here because I think they are perfect games, but I do think as more and more time goes forward, they're just going to be looked at in a more positive light. Now, I could dive into things a little bit more specifically, but when it comes to this list, I don't want to go through and what has the best story and the best characters and the best this and the best that. I'm just kind of looking back and thinking about how these games made me feel. And while it is a little bit odd to have Sword and Shield so much higher than Scarlet and Violet, I think the difference with Sword and Shield is as time has progressed, they've gotten better and better and better for me. And Scarlet and Violet, I've enjoyed playing as time has gone on, but it's almost been something where I've felt forced to play them. They've been the newest games for such a long time, and I want to come up with reasons to play them. I love Pokemon. I want there to be a new challenge or something to do. And realistically, the biggest knock on Pokemon Sword and Shield that I probably should have mentioned by now was really just shiny hunting was pretty bad in these games. It was pretty broken, the actual method, and if you weren't doing Masuda hunting, you didn't really have much of a shot. But then the final DLC gave us a really unique and really fun way to shiny hunt, and not only shiny hunt, but possibly get shiny legendaries. It's a game where it just felt like as time went on, they just added more and more that was really good. So by the time they were done and the games were fully released with all the DLC, pretty phenomenal games. On the other side, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet needed an entirely new console to drop for them to be finished, finalized, great games. So what do I want to name this tier? Aged like fine wine. And this, of course, only leaves one single game. Pokemon Legends Arceus. I don't know if this is controversial or not, but I just absolutely adore Pokemon Legends Arceus. At this point, it may be my favorite Pokemon game of all time. I had so much fun when I dove into this game, especially on the heels of Pokemon BDSP. It was just such a unique, fun new way to play Pokemon. I love really everything they attempted with this outside of the competitive side of it. You know, it's not really a game that's meant for Pokemon battling, and that's kind of the beauty of it. In the past, I've done a lot of competitive Pokemon, and it's really cool to see Pokemon moving in a direction where we can have a game like this that's completely different. It's a completely new try of the Pokemon experience. And now in the future, we're going to have a game that's completely built around competitive Pokemon. We don't have to merge everything together and try to please everyone. I feel like Pokemon Legends Arceus is really there to please a specific audience. And at least for me, very, very happy. Really love everything about this game. And as a fan, I am constantly trying to come up with reasons to go back to the game. The reason I do so many shiny hunting challenges within Legends Arceus is just because I want to have an excuse to play it more. I made up a reason where it would make sense to try to perfect the Pokedex so I could have that perfected Pokedex. And I just really enjoy every aspect of it. The way you catch Pokemon is so satisfying. Flying around the map and hoping to hear the shiny sound, you go into the air is great. I really love the alpha Pokemon. The story was really fun and phenomenal, and just the 5 different areas are so unique. All of the Hisuian forms are fantastic. I just really freaking love Pokemon Legends Arceus. And the fact that we're looking forward to a new Legends game is incredibly exciting. I'm not sure if I'm gonna love it as much as these games. It'll be interesting to see how much has truly changed, but it is so cool to be at a point where we have Pokemon games that are this different. We're trying things this unique, as it really made BDSP look as boring as they were. It's nice to go back to an old version of Pokemon, bring it onto a new console, and give it a few bells and whistles. But for my taste, I think it's a lot better to get a completely new experience of an old region. And that's what Legends Arceus was. And it's a Pokemon game I would recommend to absolutely anyone. Legendary. It just feels right. But there you have it, my entire list of all of the Pokemon games released on the Nintendo Switch. Definitely some fantastic games here, but a few games that left a bit to be desired. And I'm hopeful that what we've seen early on from the Nintendo Switch 2 gives us some Pokemon games that are better than we're even expecting. And hopefully most of the Pokemon community can come together to really enjoy 1 or 2 of these new games and that great experience. But that's for the future, and for now, you should probably click on this video. I got a lot more coming your way in the future, especially with these new games on the horizon. But for now, I think this is the video you should click.